Tonight on One News. Terror talk comes close to home. Is the world's most wanted man targeting New Zealand?
He was feared dead in the Bali blasts. Now a New Zealander's home from his holiday in hell.
The Dust Bowl danger. It's feared Australia's disastrous drought will bring a big dry here.
And they're no dumbos, the woman who's learned the language of the elephant.
First tonight, the fears the world's most wanted man is alive and has his sights set on New Zealanders.
Veiled threats are contained in a new tape recording said to be from Osama bin Laden. Broadcast by an Arabic TV station, US officials say it's probably the Al-Qaeda leader. The haunting message praises the Bali bombings and says Australia paid the price of ignoring warnings to stay out of Afghanistan and East Timor. New Zealand troops are also serving in both places. And as political editor Mark Sainsbury reports, our Prime Minister is taking the matter seriously.
George Bush wanted him dead or alive, but Osama bin Laden, the mastermind of the September 11 attacks, appears to have survived the American bombing campaign in Afghanistan. Security experts believe this voice on a 4.5-minute tape released on the Arabic Al Jazeera network is in fact Osama bin Laden's.
I'm sure it'll be analyzed to determine its authenticity, but I have no reaction to it at this time.
Unofficially, US experts believe it is genuine. The tape, believed to have been recorded in the last 2 weeks, praises recent terrorist attacks by what he calls Muslim martyrs, including the bombing of a French tanker in Yemen, then the nightclub bombing in Bali.
Australia is the one that we have warned before not to participate in Afghanistan, not to mention its continued awful chapter in East Timor. They ignored our warning, and they woke up to the sound of explosions in Bali, but the government pretended that they were not the target.
New Zealand officially withdraws its main force from Timor this weekend, but we are actually stepping up our contribution to the American campaign against terrorism.
It hasn't caused you to think maybe we need to reassess what we're doing?
Certainly not. It actually convinces me that we made the right decision to continue being helpful with the international campaign to track these people down.
The chilling warning on the tape to supporters of the United States brings a threat closer to home.
We will better protect the lives of New Zealanders if we address the political problems and don't just go off to war with America into Iraq or anywhere else.
But most political support is behind the government. Some want them to go even further.
We shouldn't back down. What we should be doing is, instead of sending a frigate to the Gulf but then pretending that we're not supporting the Americans, we should come right out and say, no, we're 100% behind our traditional ally.
The government tonight is reinforcing its warning to travellers to avoid places that could be potential targets. As to an attack on New Zealand soil, Helen Clark says the risk is still low. But this latest warning, if confirmed, shows that the terrorist network is now looking beyond the United States and to the countries that support it. Mark Sainsbury, One News.
A New Zealander feared dead in the Bali terror attacks is finally home. Dean McDougall was seriously hurt when 2 bombs blew up outside bars in the town of Kuta, killing almost 200 people. His friends spent 3 days searching Bali's morgues before Dean was found in an Australian hospital. And today he arrived home and spoke to Cliff Joyner.
Dean McDougall finally on New Zealand soil after a holiday to hell.
To be honest, I can't remember most of it, but yeah, it wasn't the best experience of my life. But
the Southlander was in Paddy's bar when the first bomb exploded.
It was just a bright flash and everybody started running kind of thing, and everybody, yeah, just herded towards the doorway.
So that was, you were amongst them?
Yeah, I ended up jumping over some little kind of wall, and yeah, then I felt my leg, obviously.
That was just the beginning of the ordeal for Dean, his family and friends. While he was being looked after by locals,
one person put a tourniquet on my leg, which probably saved my life with all the bleeding from the artery, and then I got thrown on the back of a motorcycle.
His friends had started a desperate search.
But yeah, thanks to my friends that had a horrible job looking through all the hospitals and morgues for me.
In New Zealand, his family was fearing the worst. Was it frustrating trying to communicate with people, to let them know who you were so that they could tell your folks and friends that you were okay?
Yeah, I can't really remember it as such. I can remember giving somebody my parents' phone number, but yeah, it was kind of a bit of a blur, basically.
The accountant's badly cut leg still needs treatment.
Basically, just got to wait and see kind of what feeling comes back into my foot, and just a matter of time, basically, to see what I can do. I'll be able to walk, but probably running, I'm not going to be the flashiest athlete for a while.
But Dean counts himself one of the lucky ones. His next drink that night would have been in the Sari Club. Cliff Joyner, One News.
Andy McDougall's in Wellington Hospital for more treatment on his injured leg.
Mystery still surrounds a car that appears to have been wired for explosives and has delayed traffic near Dunedin all day. Bomb disposal experts using a special robot are still examining the vehicle after a man was found dead inside it early this morning. The area on State Highway 1 near Waikuaiti was cordoned off as soon as a policeman reached the car.
There was a couple of wires that were connected from the door across the door well. He's opened the door and he's actually broken those wires, and as a result, yeah, he's backed off pretty quick.
Several doors have been removed and police say they've found documents on explosives downloaded from the net. Police have not removed or identified the body.
The mother of two schoolgirls stabbed to death in Masterton last December has started giving evidence in the trial of her former partner, Bruce Howes. Charlene Applin told the court that just months before the killings, one of her girls told a school friend that Howes had been sexually abusing her. Pippa Wetzel reports.
Charlene Applin arrives in court to give evidence against her former partner, the alleged killer of her two daughters, a man she can now barely bring herself to look at.
Your ex-partner, Bruce Howes, is he in court today?
Yes. 12-year-old Salil Applin and 11-year-old Olympia Jetson were stabbed in their bedrooms last year. Charlene Applin described to the court her daughters, who she had called Ollie and Seal.
How would you sum up Salil's personality?
She was straight to the point. She was a lamb in like a wolf's clothing. She used to act like she'd make out she was this tough, staunch person, but then she'd be really, she had a real soft side.
Olympia, did she have a nickname?
Ollie.
How would you describe her?
She was loving. She was caring.
Charlene told the court her 8-year relationship with Howes had been problematic. She said at times he was suicidal, a closet drinker with no friends. She told the court that she had twice laid assault charges against him. The court heard Charlene had lost several family members in 1992 at the hand of mass murderer Raymond Ratimer, and that Howes often threatened her with a similar fate.
He said that he was going to kill me and the kids, just like Raymond. That they deserved, that the kids deserved what they got, and that Raymond should have finished the job he'd done.
The mother of the two dead girls will continue giving evidence tomorrow. Pippa Wetzel, One News.
And there are more than 100 Crown witnesses still to give evidence in the trial.
Money spent by the former boss of TVNZ is to come under renewed scrutiny. Yesterday, an independent audit cleared Dr. Ross Armstrong of any more improper out-of-town expenses while at TVNZ. But today, TVNZ is reopening its investigation. That's because of revelations that he'd invoiced the broadcaster for another $6,000. Political reporter Robin James has more.
Today is day 26 of the Armstrong affair.
The government had thought revelations about the former TVNZ chairman were over with the release yesterday of a KPMG audit.
The audit report looked only at the credit card expenses. So the public was supposed to believe that this came to an end when the bill for his Paris trip was $875.
TVNZ's now revealed further investigations have shown Dr. Armstrong invoiced extra expenses from the trip to Paris directly to the broadcaster, including $1,430 for an interpreter, $1,800 for a car and driver, and $2,500 for return airfares from Rome to Paris, a total of nearly $6,000. Yesterday, the KPMG audit found Dr. Armstrong improperly ran up more than $1,000 in expenses, which he's since paid back. Dr Armstrong is also repaying NZ Post $360. He mistakenly claimed in accommodation allowances.
The media reports that whenever anyone attempted to question him, Dr Armstrong replied that he was a very good friend of the Prime Minister's.
I would be appalled if that were the case.
Nationals now calling for the Auditor-General to sack KPMG as TVNZ's auditors.
KPMG knew when they prepared that report that its use was going to be to provide a clearance that they had no way of giving because they had not done the work.
TVNZ's now reopened its investigation, and NZ Post says it's collating Dr Armstrong's expenses from when he was its chair. This issue isn't going away soon. Robin Janes, One News.
Neither Dr Armstrong nor KPMG returned calls to TVNZ this afternoon.
The protest at Wanganui's Motua Gardens is over. Wanganui Māori say they'll leave the gardens early tomorrow after a government commitment to fast-track their claims over the Wanganui River. John Newton has the latest.
A waiata of hope today at Motua Gardens.
The past few days has been pretty low for us as a people to see that, imagine that we were going to lose our river. But the news that was brought back from Wellington last night has given the people a more positive outlook.
Protest leaders returned with a commitment from Treaty Negotiations Minister Margaret Wilson to reach a good faith settlement of the Wanganui River claim.
We will now immediately enter into negotiations, which means we will scope the terms of negotiation, set up a time frame and get into it.
This is a very positive start. We remain optimistic.
The Minister says the use of the river's headwaters, which the power company Genesis currently diverts for hydro generation, will be part of those negotiations, and any settlement will override resource consents. And the iwi maintains restoring river flow is a bottom line.
We have no choice but to ensure the well-being of our river, the restoration of the waters of our river.
Wanganui locals also seem to want the river issue resolved.
A reasonable solution to an aim which I think most people would agree with, and that's the preservation of the Wanganui River.
Especially with the diversion of the headwaters, it's an issue that we should all be concerned about.
It's taken 3 occupations of Motua Gardens by Wanganui iwi to draw government attention to their land and river grievances. This 4-day occupation is now expected to finish in the early hours of tomorrow morning. John Newton, One News.
And Genesis, the power company involved in the dispute, says it's satisfied with the deal that's been reached.
Next on One News, what's going on in the royal household? Prince Charles launches an investigation.
The inside word, Saddam's son has his say on the dilemma facing Iraq.
Trumpeting their cause, the real-life Dr. Dolittle who talks to the elephants.
And keeping it in the family, a familiar sound at the Canterbury show for close to a century.
Tim is the 3rd generation of our family to be involved at the Christchurch show.